And now we will play a little game. We have a few. That's it. And after that, we're going back to the conversation.
Okay,
but we have few cards here.
Okay.
We have questions. I don't know what the questions are. You can just pick one, read it, and then answer.
Okay, so I'm asking myself the
You're
question.
asking yourself the question and then answering yourself.
Okay, how are you so handsome? Oh, no, sorry, no.
Why? I swear to God, wait, John.
Yeah?
I wanted to write it. And Daniela, our brand and content lead, didn't want. But
well, Daniela is the only person standing between you and I and a problematic future, so that's good. You've been a player, a VC, an exec, and now the face of Jagex. Which version of John taught you the hardest lessons? Oh, God, how do I answer that?
Wow.
Wow. I would say the executive roles are hard. They've all been quite different in the way that they're hard. I'd say working with the team at CVC was one of the greatest sort of thrills of my professional career. The sort of intelligence and speed of movement and curiosity and humility in that room was taught me a lot. I think as a sitting executive at huge games, it certainly taught me a lot about being scrappy and dealing with 80-20 decisions rather than 100% clarity and doing hard things, such as an IPO or a big turnaround, or there's been a few of those in my career that have taught me a lot. Jagex, I think, is different to everything else I've ever done. Historically, I can sort of measure my career by getting a big deal done or closing a fundraise or listing a public company or buying another business or selling a business or something like this. And so you can measure my career in chapters. Jagex isn't like that. It doesn't have a one and done moment where you've achieved the big thing or you're running a sale process or something. It's much more of a marathon. And it's also totally different culturally to anything that I'd done before besides working at Jagex the first time. So I think that is currently teaching me much more on a day-to-day basis than any other job has. And that's strange because it's also the place that I feel most familiarity with, right? Like a lot of the people I recognize from 10 years ago, the players I certainly recognize, the games I recognize better than anything, the building I work in is the same one from 10 years ago. And so whilst it feels familiar, the rate of learning for all of us in this moment as we go through such a big transformation, I think is unparalleled.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it's humbling.
It was a great answer to a very tough question.
Answer.
Let's choose another one, John.
Okay,
You're on fire. You're on fire.
Okay. In your journey, what's one belief you carried for years that later had to completely unlearn?
Oh my God.
And who paid the price while you were still holding on to it? Jeez. Oh, that's so deep. It's like, for anybody watching, it's like barely the afternoon here, and this is philosophy. In my journey, what's one belief that I carried for years that you can later had to completely unlearn? I think one naive belief that I had in the earlier parts of my life, particularly coming from quite a quantitative background, was that most things in life were solvable, and most of the challenges I face day to day now are not solvable challenges. If they were, they would have been solved.
Wow.
They are grey, they're murky, they're amorphous. They relate to emotion and sentiment and feeling, and much less to do with the optimal price point or the optimal MTX package or the optimal UA campaign. They're much grayer than that. And I think that is a hard thing to find comfort in if you've progressed through most of your career on the back of being very strong analytically or quantitatively or logically. Suddenly it's a lot more soft around you in terms of the problem space. So that's something that I've learned is, not everything is solvable. And the stuff that is solvable is often much less important than the stuff that isn't. Who paid the price while I was holding on to it? Oh, God. There's a joke in there about ex-girlfriends probably, but I honestly don't know. That's something that I will certainly give more time to once we're a bit more bedded in at Jagex.
But actually, it's something very interesting you said about the unsolvable task. I assume that it's an important learning, but I assume you're still trying to solve these huge problems. And how do you know if a problem is solvable or not today?
They normally present as either something that requires a resolution. So, for example, how many players can we expect to be in the ecosystem tomorrow is mostly solvable, at least on the surface. But at some point, you get to the decision flow. You look at the retention curves of the existing cohorts. You look at the new player acquisition profile and project that out till tomorrow. You look at any features that are likely to affect retention curves or daily engagement rates. You look at what day of the week it's going to be, whether Jupiter's in retrograde. You can add all of these inputs, right, to try and get to a position where you've solved for it. But ultimately, beneath all of that, how many players playing tomorrow is really about how many players feel like playing tomorrow. And as soon as you get to that layer, it becomes a lot more about, are people net happy? Which parts of the player base are not so happy? Why are they not so happy? What's likely to trigger their excitement tomorrow? Is tomorrow even a relevant day to be trying to drive excitement, or would that be better served for next Wednesday? All of that is really hard to solve. And for a business like ours, with products like ours, it's so much more, like I mentioned, about community management than it is about solving for the sort of calculus of what to do. And if you're trying to figure out the best time to drive the most excitement for a new feature that's about to release, that's a lot more about how you feel than what you see.
Oh man, that was
Philosophy.
that was deep
It
for all
was
of that.
deep. It was too deep for me at this point in the game, but
No, it was
that's
great.
what I have.
If you want, we can choose another one, the last one.
Last
Let's
one?
choose the last one.
Okay.
You can have both and choose.
Thanks, I've taken both. Well,
Which one you prefer? I will read the last one that you
Okay.
didn't choose.
there's one that comes to mind for me. So, what is one golden piece of advice you've received that you secretly kept with you? It's not much of a secret because I talk about it all the time with my team. I think if you're going to be aggressive, be all the way aggressive. And what I mean by that is, instead of taking one big swing, the best way to take one big swing is to take 9 others, right? So if you're going to bet the house on something, that will seem like aggression, or you're going to bet on yourself for one big thing that must come off. That seems like aggression, but it's not a very smart type of aggression. I think betting on 10 things in a way that you don't feel comfortable with, knowing that you need to be able to get 6 or 7 of them right in aggregate, is the only sensible way to do this. So for
Wow.
us, that means taking big risks on content, making some hard decisions about team shape, size, about roadmap, etc., that might not seem very sensible. They might seem overly aggressive, but as long as they're accompanied by 5 or 6 other quite big swings with enough timeline, 3-5 years, I think that's the kind of thing that separates what seems like one big swing coming off in retrospect is often the one that did of the 5 that were tried, rather than the one that did of the one that was tried. So one piece of advice I get from my board quite frequently is, don't be afraid to be bold, but if you're going to be bold on a few things.
Wow.
Make sense?
It makes a lot of sense.
Mm.
I think it's I will try to compare it to the Chinese culture of like the new studios. I also spoke about it with Akin. They know how to double down on things for real. They do a few things at the same time, but when they double down, for example, they're very, very strong in UA activity. They're very strong in, a lot of stuff. But when they do something, it's all the way.
Yeah.
It's all the way without looking right and left, just going to this direction and doing whatever it needs. So yeah, I believe it's interesting. For me, it makes tons of sense. It's contradictive to people that are saying you should focus on one thing. But sometimes, especially I assume when the company is big, you run. You said 3 games. You have a new game. You have a community you have a lot of very important efforts to run at the same time. So you need to choose the hopefully the most impactful one and to double down on them like crazy. And like you said, I think it's all about the people. Like you have the management team, and I assume this is what enabled you to run the company well at the moment.
So far, so good, right? It's only been sort of 6 months or so, but we'll see. I think the important thing with that is that you recognize when you're actually doing 5 bold things and it's not really just one bold thing. So for example, if you're releasing a new product and you're going to change the metagame versus the previous product, and you're going to change the core loop, and you're going to change the graphic style, and you're going to change the way that you do UA, and you're going to focus on K factor instead of marginal ROAS, all of those things seem like 5 big bold steps, but they're actually just one bold risk on one product,
same game,
right? And that's, I think, where it gets hard to separate what you're actually taking swings for versus adding swings to. I think that's a watch out. But yeah, Akin loves those stories about
China.
It can often seem, when you look at sort of some of the Chinese hit studios that have come through, like Century and Hungry, and prior to that, Bowler Games, they've done tremendously well in mobile. And if you look at them from the outside in, it looks like they've just made consecutively the right choice after the right choice after the right choice. But I suspect what they've actually done is taken 5 choices, one has worked, 5 choices, one has worked. And that kind of sheer output is the differentiator, rather than luck, as it often gets called here in the West.
Amazing. I have a question regarding IP of